Hey friends, my name is Mike Berg from We Heart Games, and I am going to teach you how to play the solo expansion to Crownfell Last Stand. In Last Stand, you'll be controlling just 4 character cards against a horde of oncoming enemies that move faster than you and outnumber you. If you haven't watched the How to Play Crownfell video yet, this video will make a lot more sense if you watch that one first. I'll put the link in the description. That's it from me. Let's head inside and start playing the game.
To set up a solo game, place the crown card in the middle of the table as usual. As before, I'll be using the optional playmat. For your first couple of games, I recommend starting with one of these 2 starter teams. They are the same starter teams as from the 2-player game. Normally, if you're not using one of the starter teams, you would shuffle the remaining cards and deal 4 to yourself, and that would be your starter team. To more closely mimic the draft from the 2-player game, you can deal 8 cards around the crown card, and these are the cards you'll be drafting from. You get the first pick, so if this was me, I would maybe take the beacon. So that would be the start of my team. Then you'd shuffle your solo deck, flip a card onto the crown space, and look at this priority arrow. This now points at the card that will then be discarded. You can place this back on top of your deck with the rest of the cards. Now I get my second choice. I'll take the Guardian. Now I'll flip another card from the solo deck. I get another arrow that's pointing here to an empty space, but there's a secondary arrow that tells you that this is going clockwise. So we would move clockwise until we find a valid target. Now it's my turn to pick again. I'll take the Angel. Flip one more card. That points at the Harbinger. This goes back on the pile. I'll take the Stag. The Minstrel is last and left. That just goes back on the pile. And now we can take our solo cards and shuffle them again. Our solo cards can go beside the board. Now we've got our starting team. This is our hand. And the rest of the cards get flipped over, shuffled, and you deal 3 of them into the enemy's home row, starting at the left side, and the rest of the deck gets placed there in the column above the first empty space. Now you're ready to play. The turn structure for the solo game is all enemy cards on the board act before you get to act. So the enemy turn is each card takes an action, and then you as a player get to take just 2 actions. So for every enemy action, the first thing you do is assess who gets to go first. And that's decided by the closest row to you and then left to right. So we only have cards in the back row, so the leftmost card goes first. Now to decide what it does, we flip a solo card and we look at the actions on this card. Can it capture? No, because there's no black cards on the board for it to capture. Can it move? Yes, it can. So you always start at the top and move your way down to determine what that card does, what its available actions are. So it can't capture, so it moves. Then we look at the priority arrow. Again, it can't move that way. It can't move that way because it doesn't have movement in that direction. So it moves diagonally towards us. And in the solo mode, a card will always move as far as it can. So this vampire has 2 moves in that direction. Now, this card landed on the rally space. When an enemy rallies, they always get a free deploy. So another card comes out, and every time you deploy, you move the enemy deck 1 space to the right. So the vampire is done. I like to tilt the cards a little bit so that I know who has done their action and who hasn't. That gets a little bit more important as the table gets more full. Okay, next is the Revenant. It cannot capture, it does not have a special ability, so it will move, and it will move again in the same direction. It can't move backwards. It rotates clockwise until it goes this way. So the Revenant has moved. Flip another card. The Harbinger cannot rally from where it is, it cannot capture. It also doesn't have an ability, so it will move and it starts by checking in that direction. Can't move that way. So the next space that it can move is here. And the Minstrel can't capture, it can move, and it has going to move one space to the left because that's what it can do. So that's almost the end of the enemy turn. So now we have moved past the grid from left to right. I like to think of this empty row, which is not really a row, as the last action that always happens. So at the end of every enemy turn, it always gets one more card deployed. So then we move the deck again over to there. Now it's my turn. So I only get 2 actions, including my deployments. I'm going to straighten these out. I don't think I can capture anything this turn, so I need to play a little bit defensively and just get some cards out on the board. I'm going to deploy the beacon here because it has a double move. It can cover that rally space. And I will also deploy the Guardian here, and it will help protect the beacon. And that's my turn. So we keep going. I flipped a new card for the Vampire, which is the first card to act. Can it capture? No. Can it move? Yes. And it would move. It can't move straight back because the Revenant is there, so it will move on a backwards diagonal. So that card has acted. The Revenant cannot move straight forward, so it can't move or capture. It doesn't have an ability. So it will just move on a diagonal that way. Harbinger is next. It cannot move that way. And because this is moving clockwise, it will actually come all the way around to its next available move target, which is here. So that Harbinger moves there. The Minstrel, again, cannot capture, so it moves. Now, if the rally had been higher up, it would have moved towards the rally, regardless of the arrow. But the move was higher up in the list, so again, it just moves one space to the left. The Mystic gets a card, and it cannot rally, it cannot capture, so it will move 2 spaces straight forward. Remember, the cards always move as far as they can. And that's the end of the enemy turn after one more deploy. Now, this situation really doesn't look very good for me because the Harbinger is threatening the Guardian, and I can't take out this Harbinger without using both of my actions. So if I were to move the beacon here and then here, I could take it, but then I would be threatened by the Vampire. I could deploy the Stag and take it, but again, it would still be threatened by the Vampire. Okay, I think I'm going to go for a bold move here. The Guardian is threatened by the Harbinger, so I'm going to actually move it out of there. And I'm going to take out the Revenant, and I'm going to take out the Vampire, and almost certainly sacrifice that Guardian to either the Minstrel or the Martyr. All right, enemy turn starts again. Harbinger is first because it's closest to me. It can't move that way, so it's going to move here. Mystic is next. Can't move that way. It's going to come down all the way to here. Martyr is next. Capture is the first thing on the list, so yep, it takes out the Guardian. And the Minstrel has its ability first on this list. And so this is the first time we've got an ability triggered on one of the enemy cards. And the way that works is, this says move an ally 1 space forward. To decide which ally moves forward, now there's only one available ally that can move forward, but you would normally use this same arrow to choose one of the allies on the board relative to the Minstrel, and then move that ally 1 space. So the Martyr gets kind of a bonus move there. So now we've got our deploy action since all of our cards have acted. This card is in the same space as the column where the deck is. So we'll move that one space to the right, deploy, and move again. All right, things are looking a little grim here. I think the obvious choice is to take this Harbinger out with the beacon. I don't want to take the Martyr out with the beacon because it is threatened by the Minstrel. So I think I will play the Angel into the corner here. And maybe I can get a rally action in there on my next turn. Okay, enemy turn. Flip another card. This is for the Mystic. Cannot capture. Can't use its ability. Can't rally, so it will move back one space based on this arrow. The Martyr, since it can't capture, it will move 2 spaces in that direction. The Minstrel will move 2 spaces forward. And the Reflection will also move 2 spaces forward, which triggers a rally. Add the Assassin. Now notice this is now part of the board state. All the enemies have not acted yet, so the Assassin does still get a turn to act. So we flip another card. And the Assassin moves 1 space forward. I'm definitely going to want to get rid of that Assassin as soon as possible. Deploy a card, and now I'm ready for my turn again. I think my best move for this turn is going to be to take out this Minstrel because it's directly affecting my beacon. And then I'm going to move 1 space forward to get out of range of the Reflection and also potentially threaten the Assassin on the next turn. All right, we have used all the cards in the solo deck. Flip them over. Don't shuffle that deck, and just keep playing. The Martyr can't capture, so it'll move, and it's going to move this way, 1 space. The Mystic can't capture. Will it use its ability? It doesn't have an adjacent enemy, a diagonally adjacent enemy, that is. So it will move straight back 1. The Reflection will move back 2. So that one's acted. The Assassin is going to move 1 space. It cannot capture. So it's going to move 1 space towards the beacon. That one's acted. So now we reassess the board, but this Reflection has already acted, so it does not get to go again. The Labyrinth can't capture, so it'll move this way 1 space. Deploy, move the deck, straighten our enemies. This is interesting. I think the best move for me in this situation is to go for this double kill. Take out the Assassin, take out the Martyr. That beacon is doing some heavy lifting here. All right, ready to keep going. Flip 1 for the Mystic. It can't quite rally because it doesn't have 2 arrows going in that direction, so it's going to move forward 2 spaces. The Pyro can't rally or capture. It can't use its ability. It's going to move. Can't move this way, so it's got to move 1 space on that diagonal. The Reflection move is ahead of rally, so it would, if rally had been ahead of move, it would have moved to the rally space, but it's moving instead, and it's going to go 1 space to the side. The Labyrinth is going to move 1 space forward. Move the deck because it can't deploy into that space. Deploy the Duke, move the deck again. All right, We're looking pretty good as far as not being threatened, so I think I'm going to bring out my last card. We'll deploy the stag here and get rid of this mystic hanging out in our home row. And we're going to keep going. The pyro is going to rally. That deploys the Monarch. Move that last card over. Pyro has acted. Now, the Labyrinth. Here's one thing about cards with special icons on them, like the lock icon. If the Labyrinth can move in a way that will allow it to lock another enemy card, or another black card, I should say, it will prioritize doing that. So it can't capture from where it is, it doesn't have an ability, it can't rally, so it will move. Now, normally it would say to move that way, but because it has a lock icon, and because it can move to a space where it can lock one of my cards, it will do so. Darn. Okay, the reflection will be moving to the side. The Duke is going to move all the way out here. Right? Did I do that right? No, the ability is first. So, the Duke's ability is to move an adjacent ally one space in any direction. So, normally, if you had more than one adjacent ally, you would use this priority arrow to choose which of the allies you move. Here we only have one that's adjacent. So, the Monarch is going to move, and then you also use the priority arrow to decide which direction it will move. So this, it can't move that way or that way, so it's going to move one space like this. Now, keep in mind, this was still the Duke's turn. Now the Monarch still gets to go. So we're going to flip another card, and it is going to move to the side. Oh, hang on a second. I almost skipped this again. It has an ability before the move. The ability is deploy a card in an open space to either rear diagonal. So we've got one card left to deploy, the Warden, and we would use the priority arrow again to decide which of the two open spaces to deploy to. So this arrow is pointing this way and then that way. So the Warden is now in play, and the Warden still gets its turn now. All the other cards have acted, but the Warden. So our Warden still gets a turn. So we'll flip that card. It can't capture, so it will move. Now, normally, this Warden would move. It can't move on a diagonal that way, so it would move that way. But because it has a protect icon, which is the little shield, it actually will prioritize moving to a space where it can protect another card if it can. So in this case, because it got a move, it will actually move forward, and now it's protecting the Labyrinth, which is locking our beacon. We are in trouble here. That's the end of the enemy turn. There's no more cards left to deploy, so they do not get a deploy action at the end of their turn anymore. And if the enemy were to rally at the crown space, instead of getting an extra deploy, they get an extra what's called a direct action. And so that card would follow its current arrow to choose any other card on the board, and that card would get a free passive move in the direction of the current priority arrow as well. But we'll get to that. We'll see if that comes up in play here. Okay, so we've got a bit of a tricky situation here. Thankfully, the beacon is not currently being threatened by anyone. The stag cannot come and capture the Labyrinth because it's being protected by the Warden. So I think the best move right now is to bring our angel flying in here, capture that pyro. That gives us a bonus rally action, which at this point would let us just use the direct command, which actually allows us to move the beacon away from its locked position. So a beacon can't, under its own power, move out of a locked space, but another card can move locked cards away. So I'm going to move this beacon one space in any direction, and I think I'm going to move it up here, because a direct action can even move a card and it ignores its movement restrictions. So the beacon can't normally move diagonally, but the angel has directed it to do so. Now from here, I want to get this angel out of here because it's threatened by both the Labyrinth and the Monarch. It's actually going to jump all the way back here, take out the reflection as well, and now we're looking much better than we did at the start of that turn. The enemy only has 4 cards left. Let's see if we can take them out. The Labyrinth moves first. It moves ahead of Rally, so it will move forward. That allows it to lock the stag in place. Monarch is next. It cannot capture because it has only a passive move in that diagonal direction, so it will move. Can't move that way, so it will move straight forward. It does rally, so now we get to move 1 card. Now this priority arrow is pointing first at the Labyrinth. Now the Labyrinth will not be moved because it is currently locking the stag, so the Monarch will prioritize a different target rather than the Labyrinth, because this will try to keep that lock in place as much as it can. So the next one around counterclockwise is the Warden, and it will move forward 1 based on this priority arrow. So our Monarch has acted, our Labyrinth has acted, the Warden has not yet acted. We need to reset our deck. Now it can't capture, it will move, except, again, it will prioritize keeping its shield on the Labyrinth. So it will protect the Labyrinth rather than move away. So it's actually going to not move at all. The Duke is the last one. It can't capture from where it is. It can't use its ability, so it will move, and it will move in this direction. They're kind of lining themselves up for us here. I could move the beacon and capture the Monarch and the Warden and be safe from the Duke, but if the Labyrinth pulls a card with capture above move, then it would take out my beacon. But maybe it's worthwhile because I still have 2 other fairly powerful cards left. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Oh, this gives me the other benefit of when I capture the Monarch, I can move my stag, but maybe that's not much of a benefit because both of these places are threatened by the Labyrinth. I'm just going to leave the stag where it is. And the angel, I could move it 1 space here. I'm not sure that threatens anything better either. So I'm just going to move the beacon, take out the Warden. So now the Labyrinth is no longer protected, and these 2 cards are the only ones left. The Labyrinth can't rally because of its movement restrictions. It sure can capture, and so it was going to capture the beacon as we predicted. And the Duke can't capture, but it will move, and it's going to move all the way over here. So we've got just 2 cards left. The Duke has a little bit more movement range than the Labyrinth, so I'm going to take my 2 actions and just use my stag to capture the Duke. Now it's the enemy turn again. It can't capture. It will move 1 space back. My turn. Look at that. The angel can move here and then capture the Labyrinth. And that's the game.
If you don't clear the board of enemy cards, count the number of cards that you captured, plus any white cards that were locked at the end of the game. This is your score. If a game felt too easy or too difficult, you can adjust the difficulty in a couple of ways. For hard mode, start with 3 cards instead of 4, so that it's 3 versus 14. Another way you can tweak the difficulty is to remove specific cards from the solo deck. At the bottom left corner of each solo card, there's a small number from 1 to 18.
This ranks the cards from most aggressive at 1 to least aggressive at 18. For an easier game, try removing a few cards, like cards 1, 2, and even 3 from the deck. For a harder game, remove cards 18, 17, and even 16 from the deck. The numbered cards also let you retry a game, or even share it with a friend. At the start of your game, take a picture of your initial deal by fanning out the enemy deck, the solo deck, and your starting team. Alternately, you could of course just write down these cards from bottom to top so that you or someone else could later deal and play the exact same game. This is the reason you don't shuffle the solo deck after it empties, you just flip it over. That way, the entire match is completely encoded in the initial deal.
Well, that's it for me. I hope you enjoy playing the Crownfell solo mode. I'm going to go for a walk.